Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about updates on the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress coming from Toady1 and KitFox. I guess I should extend that to just Zach because we have a blog post on Bay 12 from Zach, which I actually waited a couple of days before posting this because I wanted to confirm something, which I'll explain in a little bit. If you want to skip the part where I read the post and just want to hear the part where I talk about it, skip to here. You still with us? All right, let's continue. On the 27th, Zach posts, "As far as game difficulty goes, we have studied you like a hungry tiger seeking to find the weakness in your strategy. We are using Memorial Day weekend instead of menus. We are taking a break from the UI to give you old players the challenge that you deserve for the Steam release. More on that next week. But for now, let's talk about toggleable settings. There will be difficulty settings that adjust with the wealth triggers and frequency of invasions and thieves and beast attacks. These will be customizable just as if you had been editing the text files, but you set them when you embark. As a side note, I've been testing minecart tracks and sending loads of goblin equipment down to the magma forge to be melted down. If you think that that's a waste of time, you can now buy them off, as they will demand an artifact as a bribe before they attack. Or you can adjust the frequency of their attacks down from once every 2 seasons. There was actually a bug that caused them to escalate too fast. And the elves are also getting reworked to make them more of a challenge. The number of trees felled that takes to anger them has been greatly reduced, and their attacks are more deadly. These settings can also be changed if you choose, but watch out when you start in the Savage Lands, as you are in for a surprise, along with the rest of the horrible stuff we have planned for this weekend." Hello, so if you've made it to here, you've either skipped or just listened to me read the post, so I will assume that you have read the posts. The first thing that I really want to highlight about this is the reason that I actually waited. And the reason that I waited was they said we have planned for this weekend at the end of the post, which I kind of took and hoped to mean that we would see something else over the weekend, but it is now 9:45 p.m. on a Monday, which means it is unlikely we will see something else over the weekend. I was kind of hoping for a post from Tarn, but it doesn't seem like we're going to get that. So instead, we will just simply talk about this post that Zach posted. So previously, you could edit the difficulty, essentially, or the frequency of invasions and thieves and everything simply by editing some text files. But that looked like this. Having the ability to simply slide these difficulty settings at the beginning of an embark is really cool. However, I would like to add the question mark, which is, does this mean that we'll only be able to adjust difficulty settings at embark, or does that mean that we'll still be able to do that once the embark has started? That's probably my biggest question for this, because personally, one of my favorite things to do in Dwarf Fortress is slowly up the ante, like back out and go, maybe I decide like, oh, I want this to be a violent couple of years. Let's just crank this slider up a little bit, or let's crank this number up a little bit. Maybe I want to stop getting migrants and I want to limit my population here, and then I'm going to crank that number down a little bit. Maybe I want enemy sieges to be redonkulously big now because my defenses are way stronger than they were previously, even though I still have a low population, so crank up the number of invaders and beasts they bring. All that stuff just kind of factors into controlling Dwarf Fortress and telling the narrative that you want to tell. Somebody like Krug Smash, actually, who I'm a big fan of, and he supports me on Patreon, he contorts the game into making some of the coolest narratives you could possibly imagine, but a lot of that is done from manipulation of the game and less of the game feeding it to you. So this to me is, I think, a really interesting tool to design a setting for a fortress, but it begs the question as to whether or not we will be able to do that during a fortress itself. Now, the next thing I really want to talk about is the fact that we will be able to bribe factions to go away instead of just invading us. And it brings up another question, which I'm curious to hear about. I wonder if, because if let's say a goblin army shows up and they say, we want your legendary golden battle axe that Urist worked stuff made last year, and then we'll leave. And at that point, it will be like, okay, do they know about that artifact? Are they going to ask for that artifact in particular, or are they just going to ask for an artifact? At which point, then I could just give them a sock and tell them to sod off. Because frankly, who doesn't want to give somebody a sock and tell them to sod off? Although it would be hilarious if they show up and are just like, we want your legendary sock, which I guarantee you is going to happen. By the way, artifact socks aren't made in pairs. They literally just make one. And the last thing that I kind of wanted to talk about here is elves being more of a challenge. So currently the way elves work is they show up until they run out of arrows and then they run away. They get really mad if you try and sell them wood or anything made of wood or something that used wood as an ingredient at some point in the crafting of the item. And they also get really upset and really annoyed if you chop down too many trees. And they show up and they say, you can't chop down this many. You can only chop down, it's like roughly 120 per month. If you have royalty in your fortress, they will send a diplomat and ask nicely. And then insult you on their way out, which is kind of amusing. And if you ignore them, they will eventually attack you. They don't siege like the normal factions where they show up on the side of the map and walk towards you slowly. They stealth in, so they're invisible. Doors will mysteriously start opening, and then the second they're spotted, the entire army becomes, or that section of the army becomes, you become aware of them, and then you have to fight with them. They're quite fun to fight with, but admittedly, they have this problem where all their weapons are made of wood, which kind of makes them a bit of a pushover. So I really hope that either they get cooler animals, maybe they get some neat magic or something, but like they really need a buff to actually be a fun enemy to fight against. I almost never bother upsetting them because if you are decked out in copper with like 2 squads of like decent quality dwarves, you just ruffle stomp them in the current game. Like, it's not even funny. It's not even fair. It's like beating up a child. So frankly, them getting any sort of like buff for their violence is cool, and also them requiring or allowing you to chop down less trees is a big deal, because that would like lock up your manufacturing of iron and weapons. What do you think about these changes? I think they're all really cool. I'm really excited for next week to see what kind of stuff they talk about. But seriously, if you enjoyed watching this video and you want to see more videos like it, leave a comment down in the description with a question about Dwarf Fortress, and maybe I'll answer it in the next video. And also, if you want to see more videos like it, there's a playlist with like literally close to 100 of these now. You can just go watch them. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to support me directly, patrons are on the screen now, as they are usually. And I'll see you in the next one.